thing.
You mic checked when you were. Is that what you're doing in there when you told us to get close to the mic?
No, I was just so for the picture.
This is long.
She said.
Oh, Eric!
Oh, my bad.
That could have been way worse, mate.
Could have been. What's up, everybody? Oh, no.
Hi. Hello.
Rate this? Did you guys see that?
But did not look good.
Oh, God. Can that be a Vine?
Like, I kid you not. I just.
What's up, everybody? Oh,
Oh,
God.
oh my God.
I didn't even do anything. I just. Everybody see that?
Eric, break.
Chip says good start,
like,
bro.
who broke the mic in our studio?
Not good.
Hopefully, there's no video evidence.
This is literally the worst way to start this.
Yeah, we've done
break
really
my
well.
mic.
Okay, that's the show. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to y'all next week.
I think we are. Yes. Oh,
Stand by. Sorry.
goodness gracious.
Again, hashtag blame
Yeah,
Eric.
thank you. That's what I was gonna say.
How's everybody doing this week? This Monday?
We're doing well. I don't know. How
Somebody
you're doing.
turn off their sound. I can hear it reverbing.
Oh, that's me.
Uh-huh.
I forgot.
Hashtag blame Josh.
After all that, I forgot.
All right. I can't hear myself. Can you guys hear yourselves?
No.
I can't hear myself.
Let me see.
How about now?
Oh, I can hear you. Why can't I hear me?
Jenna says she's not laughing. She promises.
Yeah, I can hear.
You know what, Jenna? I think you're lying.
Okay, I can hear. Yeah. Man.
So, Josh, what's up with you, man?
We're
While we wait for Eric, I need you to update me on my Druid Hills. Red
playing for
Devils.
the region title tomorrow, so
Very nice. Against who?
excited. East Side.
Oh,
Going out to old Covington.
yeah. That's not like East Atlanta
No.
or like the east side of Decatur. That's like East Side.
Yeah, the boys are very confused. It's like way east.
The
Down
Check,
20
check,
we
check.
go.
boys, don't you mean the
Check,
lads?
check.
The lads, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I'm an idiot. This is why I can't hear me.
You didn't use your right lingo.
Wait, what did you do, Eric? Tell everybody.
I unplugged the mic.
Oh, that was because you unplugged the mic. You.
Good thing I caught it.
Wow.
Eric, you're
Before we
pretty out of
started,
frame on
What
this thing.
is going on?
All right, hold on.
Out of everything.
That might be too much, but I could.
Glad for the people that rewatch this and are just like, well, this is boring.
You know what? You get a moment behind the podcast. All right.
Yeah, all
You get a peek behind the curtain.
just
All right?
intense preparation here.
Intense. I do want to give a shout out to Jenna because she's been interacting with the podcast
She really has been.
like nonstop. So
Holler.
big hand to Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna.
Be like Jenna.
More like
everybody.
Jenna. Yeah.
It's like
Big
in
shout
what was
out.
it, Nutty Professor when she's like Hercules, Hercules.
All right, should we begin?
Yeah. If you're,
We're ready?
It's never too late
I've
for
been
now.
ready.
All right.
hmm
Yeah, you know what I'm talking
30
about.
Rock.
There we go.
Well, what's up, Atlanta? This is the Mountains of South podcast brought to you by Dirty South Soccer in the palatial 680 The Fan Studios. I'm Eric Quintana, Josh Bagriansky next to me, and across from me, Mr. Sam Franco. Gentlemen, how do we feel after Atlanta United's first win? Are we happy? Are we moving in the right direction? Are we off the ledge? Have we been pulled back off the ledge and we're good now?
It's funny you say that because when we tweeted out earlier that we would be talking about Atlanta United getting their first win of the regular season, like I honed in on that line for a second, like first win of the regular season. I'm like, that's kind of jarring, isn't it? Like especially for being the defending champion, to have not won a game until your fifth game, certainly a little bit of a shock.
Or in the past,
Exactly.
Especially, we're not used to losing back-to-back games.
Atlanta United is not a fan base that is used to a lot of diversity. I mean, let me read adversity. They're very used to diversity. They are not used to.
I'm just curious about the thought process behind the decision to use diversity as opposed to adversity.
Well,
no, it wasn't. There was no thought process. It was a Freudian.
There was no
slip.
thought process.
Yeah. What? Nope. Yeah, I did that on purpose.
I think that's the theme of the podcast. There's no thought process.
I was gonna say,
process.
I will challenge you to find a more diverse fan base in Atlanta.
Turn on the
United.
mics and we just say go.
In MLS, certainly, yeah. I mean, it's good to get a win. Obviously, I think we're going to dive a little deeper. The opponent and certainly the tactics they employed advanced Atlanta United's success in attack. But obviously, when you the reality is you hadn't won a league match this season. You'd won one match in all competitions I guess 2 matches. You won the Monterey second leg 1-0. So it's still a good thing mentally. I mean, if you feel they'll feel better about their business going into this week, and we can talk more about the specifics of the match. But I think when you've performed the way Atlanta United have performed, particularly going forward, to be able to create the kinds of opportunities that you did, regardless of the opposition, has to have you much encouraged this week.
That's the thing I saw immediately after the win. I saw a lot of people on social media talking about how everyone relaxed against New England. It still wasn't pretty, and I'm like, why? 2 weeks ago, you guys were calling for this guy's job, for Frank DeBoer's job, and now he gets a win. He gets a win that we all thought that he should get, that he did get, and now you're like, all right, we'll pump the brakes a little bit. Just be happy that we got the win. I know it's not everybody. I know it's not the full fan base. I know that most of you are rational human beings that can see this for what it is.
Most.
But for those of you who didn't immediately were like, yes, first win.
I was pumped.
I was too.
I mean,
if you're a fan of a team and they win a game, by default, you should be pumped.
Especially the way that the way that the season has gone. I didn't care how that win happened. I didn't care if it was the ugliest 1-0 win. I just won the 3 points.
Fortunately, it was not ugly. It could have been 4 or 5-0 to Atlanta United.
When you don't have a notch in the win column and you have a few in the loss column and a few in the draws column, of course you want to get that first win, because here's the thing: it becomes a thing if you don't get a win. You know what I mean? Like that, you don't want to create these distractions or these things that can become talking points. You want to just go ahead and knock all that stuff out when you can. So Atlanta United doesn't have to worry about, well, when are they going to win a game? Now you focus on some other things, focus on the improvement that we talked about, or that you just mentioned, the way that they played much better in this game. For all the people that were, DeBoer out like already, even going into this game, Eric hit the nail on the head. That's the type of irrational thought that comes from being, a fanatic at times, if you will. But I don't think, again, just because of the level of competition Atlanta United was up against, Atlanta United was worse off than New England in the standings going into this game. But clearly, Atlanta United a better team, and New England may be the worst team in the league. So I don't know how much you can draw from this, other than just putting Atlanta United's performance in a vacuum and saying this is much better than what it has.
There's definitely some nuance to it. Like, obviously, in terms of the DeBoer out crowd, which again I think is a small segment of people using the quality of New England to say DeBoer should still be out. I don't buy that.
I think it's the lazy thing to go to.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think most people.
The practical side of it, not just ignoring the DeBoer out part of it, which again we're not going to even. We don't have time to judge.
We're not going to dignify that with a response.
But there is a practical side to this, that you played a New England team that are a complete mess. And I think if I was to play devil's advocate about any sort of positives from this win, is that the way New England play with their kind of frenetic press forced Atlanta United to abandon the system that Frank DeBoer wants. You can't play slower, prodding possession football when a team is pressing up the field and leaving huge gaps in the middle. And of course, Atlanta United were smart, and they said, okay, well, if you're going to give us huge, all these spaces to attack into, then we don't have to play possession. But so I wonder, is that an example of Frank DeBoer getting a little more flexible with his tactics and saying, okay, boys, we can play a little more direct now that I see that, my style in its purest form isn't working? Or was it just the way that New England was playing forced Atlanta United to play some counter to the tactics they previously employed? So you could also look at this and say, yeah, you had a good match, you created a lot of chances, but it was because you were playing a team that literally forced you to play the opposite of the way that your managers wanted you to play all season.
It's kind of like what we talked about there with the with sometimes teams that'll press you. It's like, well, you can't press if a team isn't trying to possess. We saw that. It's kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
To where it's like, well, you can't really play that possession style if this team's just going to constantly be.
No, there's no reason to.
Exactly.
I mean, you were basically being handed opportunities.
I almost don't like what happened with New England, because now, it shows the rest of the league, like, okay, like, if you try to play with them, they're going to definitely play with you, and they're going to probably beat you 9 times out of 10 or whatever ratio you want to give it. But if you sit back, you force Atlanta United to break you down, then it just reinforces that idea that Atlanta United still can't break down or the best way to defend against Atlanta United is to force Atlanta to break you down defensively.
I think in particular the teams with less quality than Atlanta United. I think you would go more
Colorado,
for the
I fully expect
exactly
18 guys.
I think
11 guys in the 18.
The model that Cincinnati and Herediano in the first leg and CCL employed, I think that's the model you want if you're a team with less talent, less quality than Atlanta United. Sit back and counter, as opposed to New England's, which was to play direct, but more so coming at you, trying to win the ball and turn you over. I think clearly we see the model for beating Atlanta United, if you have less quality, and that's going to be the vast majority of teams in MLS, is to not be super aggressive and create those situations we've seen so much this season where Atlanta have a lot of possession, but it's very unthreatening, and then you're able to get forward on the counter. Meanwhile, we saw New England employ the other side of that, where, like I said, we're also going to play direct, but we're going to be very aggressive defensively and try to get up in your space and win the ball. That doesn't work.
I can appreciate the effort.
Brad Friedel loves effort. He loves effort.
You just didn't show that you had quality.
I know we're talking a little bit too much about New England. I thought their tactics were stupid and naive. I mean, if you press a team with athletic, technical players, they're just going to pass or dribble around you. And that's what happened. And that's just what the doctor ordered in terms of starting to create opportunities.
Well, Brad Friedel's very much that sort of caveman type. Going to be stuck in his ways. There's always, 4-4-2 is the way that we do this, and we're not changing. Yeah, it's just kind of that very predictable and easy to figure out kind of style and system of play.
Totally agree. And he basically would admit they play the same style every match. It's about effort. Not tactics. Or
that wasn't our problem. We just didn't try hard enough.
Let's talk about Barco, because obviously he's the
how have we not?
He's the guy that we all had starry eyes for after the match. And you sit there and wonder, okay, well, if the Remedi injury or if the Remedi concussion doesn't happen, how quickly do we see Barco, and do we even win this match?
Well,
because, look, Atlanta United had a ton of opportunities, and the only ones they scored on were the ones from Barco.
I would counter with, you had that huge chance from Joseph clear off the line early where he's slotted through by Nagby, who was playing the position Barco was in. I don't think you're maybe creating as much because he was so good, but it's certainly I think you're still winning the match. I think Atlanta, in the short time where Eric Remedi was in, did look positive and were creating.
Well, doesn't that say that Frank DeBoer went into this match with a little bit of a conservative approach by playing a Remedi? You got to be a way more defensive-minded player than a Barco in there, and it's like, well, why would you be conservative like that against a team like New England?
I thought it was very interesting. Very interesting. If you watch those first 10 minutes, though, he does employ Darlington Nagby as kind of a traditional number 10. He's playing really high pitch and attacking. So it is a little weird because you'd think Barco would be that player.
Right.
So I think he kind of went in with two minds a little bit. He wanted to be aggressive, but he didn't want his team to get caught so far forward.
Playing Remedi over Barco doesn't scream aggressive.
Well, you also
exactly.
You also should consider the last 2 weeks. We obviously that because again, what has Tito shown you this year that proved that he needs to be starting over Barco?
That was
I'm not saying
surprise. Yeah,
it wasn't that Tito had a bad game.
He had a great game.
Yeah, but at the same time, what has he shown you?
A pretty good game. Yeah.
What has he shown you in the last 4 matches, whatever it's been? That shows that he should be actually starting over Barco.
That was definitely the big surprise was seeing Tito. And again, like you said, Eric, as far as Barco's performance, it is funny because this might be the performance we look back on as where he finally broke out as a star, and he would have even played. I said might. You see the look on his face. It might.
What do I always say about the youngins and them trying to? You got to do it. You got to be.
This might be the beginning of my rampage of making the Barco haters cry. I'm just saying.
But you got to be consistent with your plays. You got to be consistent with your level of your quality.
Yeah.
I mean, we say the same thing about Carlton. We say the same thing about Bello. We say the same thing about anyone else who's tried to crack the starting 11. And I'll say the same thing about Barco. That just one match by itself. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, Barco's here. Yeah, this is the one. This is the guy we pay."
Yeah.
Dial it back.
This is one match. This fully could be, like you said, it could be the game that he blasts off into MLS record books and all that stuff. But it's just one match so far. Let's wait to see how that progresses.
You absolutely have to do.
It's a great one match.
Yeah, of course, and that's the thing. He was great. The bending goal he scored. Incredible technique on that strike, and then for him to be in a perfect position, and we can also get back to Tito in a little bit in terms of how good he was. But I mean, for Barco to be on that right spot on the first goal and then score that beautiful second goal, he was great. But again, I just don't think you can, just like we're talking about with Frank DeBoer, just like we're talking about with this team. It's one performance against basically the worst team in the league. So you do have to kind of taper expectations. But, beyond all hope, I hope this is the catalyst for Barco finally, kind of taking that next step. And because it's about consistency. It's not about one performance here or there. It really, and you guys hit the nail on the head with Tito. What did he do in the previous games to tell you that he was going to be able to play as well as he did in this game? So I just think you have to take the whole picture and much more evidence you have to compile as opposed to just, going off of just one game.
To his credit, he was given the opportunity and took full advantage of it. I don't think he had the greatest game, but he did set up the first goal, and I guess he technically does get the assist for the second goal, if we want to call that an assist. I call it an errant pass, but
it is technically an assist.
But cool.
Just miscommunication.
I'll give it to him.
Yeah.
But no, he had the opportunity. He took it, and all credit goes to him. I hope that this is something that he builds off of, a performance he builds off of that leads him to get more starts. It leads him to force Pity, to force Barco into realizing that Tito is a legitimate competitor in this spot, in the starting 11.
And that's what we want.
That he's someone that can bump off Pity, can bump off Barco, can bump whoever. Gressel, for all we know, he's someone that is going to be a legitimate competition for the starting spot. And I want Barco to realize that. I want Pity to realize that. That way they elevate their game. And, we're getting the best play out of
course, yeah,
our front attacking guys as possible.
The better Tito is playing, you'll probably get better performances out of Barco and PT as well. And certainly that's what happens. I think it's interesting. Frank DeBoer has been confident using him inverted on the left, whereas Tata Martino almost never. I mean, we all remember that famous goal against Orlando. Tito cut in and scored from the left.
That's like the only time I remember him being primarily like.
And not only that, I think that Tata almost purposefully kept him off the left side. There were a lot of matches we were thinking, all right, Tito's going to have to start on the left because of injuries or whatever, and he never did it. So it's interesting to me that Frank DeBoer has so much more confidence in him in that position than Tata Martino did. And it's a position where, it's a little bit different for a player like Tito, who I think prefers the right because he likes to basically kind of run straight ahead with the ball. And if you're on your weak foot on the left side, you're going to cut more diagonal into the middle, as we saw with his assist. So I think that's the reason is his game suits the right side a little better. But it's really nice to see that he does have the capability to play on the left. Because like you said, Eric, that is going to push a PT. It's going to push a Barco to be that much better.
It was strange because it's almost like he was being asked to do the same sort of stuff Gressel does for a little bit there. And you had an appreciation for what Gressel does on that right side because the pass into the box. Again, he does a great job on the first assist. The second one,
I agree. That was.
I mean, maybe Gressel does a little bit better job there, but I mean, it just makes you appreciate what Gressel gives you. Tito's speed is man. I don't want to call him a one-trick pony because he's not, but.
No, but that's
his best trick.
Yeah, he is dangerous when he's running at you with full speed. So I think that's good for Tito. I think what's really interesting, though, we're talking about Tito and Barco, and Atlanta United went to a 4-4-2 in the second half. I haven't heard this mentioned yet, and I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I've rewatched it like 2 or 3 times in the second half. So Barco, because we keep talking about Barco playing that number 10 spot, which first of all was a good move by Frank DeBoer, who I think we have to credit, managed a fantastic match because when Barco comes in at that cam spot and you move Nagbe back in Remedi's place, he didn't have to do that. He could have very easily moved Gressel inside, which was what he had done in previous weeks with the midfield 3, and maybe you play Barco on the right. Instead, he puts Barco in the middle, which is a much more, as you kind of mentioned earlier, Sam, Nagbe at the number 10 position, not as aggressive as Barco would be. Right. I don't know that Darlington Nagbe on the first goal is making that run that high up the pitch aggressively, close to the 6-yard box as Ezequiel Barco was. And then the second half, he went to a 4-4-2, moved Barco out of the middle to the left, moved Tito up top and Gressel to the right. And where does that second goal come from for Barco? From the left. Yeah. So you've got to give Frank DeBoer a lot of credit. I thought he managed a fantastic match, putting these guys in position to succeed. And one of the things I've noticed with him is I know that people have gotten on him for tinkering with the style a little bit, and I get that, but he's clearly studied these players and knows where they excel.
Studying and continuing to
Yeah,
study
exactly. So that's the encouraging thing for me is he's clearly putting the players in positions where he knows that they can do a job, and we saw that with the way he tinkered with the shape during the match in New England.
It's also adapting, like you guys are talking about, like studying your players and adapting based on new things you learn, because we all know the quote, Andrew Carlton, better in tight spaces than Tito. I mean, I think, if he could walk that one back, probably would, just because that's not a true statement. And, it's just one of those things where
I would disagree. But
there's a reason Tito's up with the ones and Carlton's back down with the two.
You're right. I'm not disagreeing with that.
I think it's just like, go ahead.
I'm just saying, you can't make these blanket statements. I think a lot of it had to do with, he came in December and had to get ready for a season that started in March. So, he didn't have a whole lot of time, and a lot of his assumptions, I think, were based on previous tape, based on things that, he may have seen in small spurts, but not in long, chances to watch, which is what he's seen now, which is why I think, he's comfortable with playing Tito, like you said, maybe in some of those positions that, going back to when he's talking about Carlton being better in tight spaces.
Michael Parker's a right back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can we talk about that real quick? Do we know how the genesis, more or less the genesis of the second goal from
what a brilliant!
It's a ball over the top to Michael Parker's, who's up the field.
Yeah, no,
and finds a way to get
to brilliant. He is a brilliant little flicking behind. He is a fantastic footballer.
What's the thing? He's got it.
Really
maybe physically, he's not what he used to. He's not what he once was, and he can leave you in a lurch at times, and in terms of some bad positioning and things like that. But in terms of between the ears, man, that guy knows where to be. He knows little nuances, little spots and tricks and things to do. Just there's a reason why he's still in the league and still starting for a team, because he can do it in between the years and know where to be and what to do.
And we discussed this a little last week, Eric, is you've got to go back four. So does that mean Parkhurst becomes one of those fullbacks? And I forget one of our listeners who was actually watching/listening live on YouTube. I can't remember who it is. I'm sorry. Called it. It was, how about Parkhurst at right back?
I remember that. Yeah.
And
we all thought.
And we thought absolutely. Nah. Well, I Eric was upset about it. I wasn't that.
I wasn't upset. I was just like,
I just think
probably better players to put there.
And because let's say first of all, he did play there earlier in his career.
Chip says it was him, by the way.
Chip Turlington. Yes, Chip called it. So big shout out to Chip Turlington. Was all over Parkey at right back. So for me, my thought was,
you get the MOTS prize of the week.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The shout out from us. So Parkhurst right back, I thought, for me, I'm thinking, okay, well, he's played there early in his career. We know he's a savvy player. And my thought is, okay, I'll deal with what you lose playing a Parkhurst at right back, as long as you can still play a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, as opposed to a 3-4-3. Because as we've talked about all year, when Franco Escobar went out, Frank de Boer went to a 3 in the back system. And I'm thinking, whatever, you take that weakness of Parkey at right back because you need to play three center midfielders. Instead, he was fantastic. He was a plus, and he was a plus going forward as well, as you just mentioned, Eric, which was the big surprise.
I think it helps that he was, again, playing New England Revolution.
Absolutely.
So again, consistency. Let's see how this plays out in the next two matches. The way I saw this match, fantastic win. It was just a check mark in the list of things over the next 3 matches that I think Frank de Boer needed to do. Get a win, get 3 points against New England, checked off. Now it's all about Dallas and Colorado, and see how that goes, and how this team continues to develop, how they continue to progress. I think 18 chances created is what the number was, which I think is the most for the season so far.
It was a lot.
So obviously I think against a team like New England who chose to do what they did tactically, it benefited Atlanta United. So obviously they were going to play with a lot more open spaces. Joseph seemed off, I would say.
Finishing,
but he provided when he couldn't finish. He
created 4
elsewhere.
chances.
Yeah.
But other than that, I remember very little from him in this match, though.
Joseph?
He did a lot.
Joseph, I think what we saw.
Well, I mean, like the memorable moments that, like, maybe the casual observer, doesn't. If you've watched the game again, and you go back. Well, I'm just saying, like, right off the top, there's not that much from Joseph where you're like, oh yeah.
But with a little better finishing, I think you would remember. I mean, he set up 3 or 4 quality opportunities, and the goal. If you're right about to mention this, Eric. Haha.
I mean, he's drawn the defender.
It's his. He chested the ball. I'm sorry. That goal, and then also the first goal. he chests the ball and flicks Tito through in behind.
Yeah.
Beautiful chest, and then he plays him in behind. With
That's
his feet,
right. That
and
was
Tito
the
does
moment.
the rest.
Yeah, you're right.
I think-
Also, if Gressel scores and the one that he had that gets cleared off the line, you're looking at that pass that he makes and thinking, oh my gosh, we're
And he made
we've not
another
seen
pass to he made two passes. He made one to Tito where he turned to his left and Tito tried to open up his hips first half as well and play. So I thought Joseph.
You also had the sure thing that we thought was going to be a goal that he just like a shank, maybe hit the turf, who knows?
Yeah, he's
that
had
went just a little wide.
three. You know, and I think the first one might have actually been called back for offsides with VAR. The one where,
After the
where
fact,
Farrell,
yeah.
and then the second one, which would have been a beautiful piece of play where Barco sprung Gressel down the right, and he crosses it, and that's one you've seen Joseph finish, you know, a million times and he doesn't. It just, you know, I tweeted this out. Joseph Martinez has not had a real goal scoring opportunity in a soccer match for over a month.
This
I mean,
match might have been the first
literally
time.
the last big chance that I remembered him having was the goal against Cincinnati. And someone correct me if I'm wrong. He didn't have chances with other than the penalty he scored for Venezuela. He literally has not had a major goal scoring opportunity for over a month of play. So I'm going to empathize and cut the guy some slack for missing some chances. We're used to seeing him buried.
I bet he's more frustrated than any of us that he missed those chances.
No doubt.
Because he wants that monkey off his back.
Oh, no
he
doubt.
Wants to be freed of that stress and
I would
back to the scoring.
I'll tell you what,
he was on last
I'd
year.
hate to be Dallas defending Joseph
Yeah.
Martinez with that sort of mindset coming into this weekend.
Well, that's the thing.
The goals are coming.
The mindset's one thing, but again, he has to have been so frustrated up to this point just with the way that this team was playing and not, you know, providing him. And because I think I saw where like Zlatan Ibrahimovic right now is on a pace to have a better season. And obviously these are projected things, but
It's
it's on
early,
pace to
yeah.
have a better season than Joseph did last year. And, you know, I'm sure Joseph catches wind of things like that. And he's like, well, you know, I'm here to defend my crown, so to speak. So the chances, the service and all that stuff just wasn't really there in the first few games. And obviously you play New England and it's much different. But you talk about being Dallas's defense and not wanting to see it, but let's give Dallas some credit. They are a much better team than New England.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be a different type of match.
But I feel like they're gonna want to play, much like New England, and they're not gonna sit back. I fully expect that Colorado is gonna.
Well,
sit
no
back.
one plays like New England, I don't think. Just pressing madly up the field. But in the sense
But
that
I don't think SC Dallas is gonna wait for Laney to make a mistake.
they'll try to play some of their game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The bottom line, I think Jeffrey sums it up well on the YouTube comments here. If you give Joseph service, the goals will come.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, the guy scored, a league record in goals last season, and he's been on a tear ever since joining Atlanta United when he's healthy. So,
Yeah. And also in the chat, Chris Lombardi brings up a good point about Joseph, that he's a little bit less free with his positioning with Miguel Miron gone. Nobody has picked up on the ground Mickey covered. I totally agree. I don't know if it's totally that Almiron is gone or Frank de Boer's tactics, but we're definitely
It's a
seeing
little bit of both,
a more
for sure.
expansive version of Joseph in terms of getting involved in the build-up a little bit more. He's absolutely suited for it.
I tweeted at some point early on, and maybe this is a bad comparison, but before they had scored their first goal, I was like, man, it just seems like Joseph has been reduced to this like Josie Altidore type of role.
oh,
Obviously not the same body types or anything like that,
are
but
you saying we're just going to start launching long balls?
Josie Martinez.
he's playing with his back to goal and he's flicking them over. It just reminded me of a lot what Josie Altidore did. Now, obviously,
Long ball,
don't get me wrong, Joseph, a much better, much different player than Josie Altidore. But for a moment, I was like, man, this looks very familiar. And I knew where it looked familiar because it looked like what Josie Altidore was doing for the U.S. men's national team for a long time.
And they were
launch the ball forward, and
But I mean,
hopefully he can do something.
as soon as he got his first couple of chances, I was like, all right, cool. I'm glad I like what I'm seeing here.
Mhm. And it's good to see him getting on the end of crosses again.
Because that's not something we saw him do last year. We didn't see him with his back to goal much.
not much.
We didn't see him, trying to do a flick over the back or over the shoulder or anything like that. We saw him, making runs towards goal, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah,
This
and
is a much different, much more dynamic.
I think that's just and that's we talk about what differences can we clearly identify between Tata Martino and Frank de Boer. I think that's definitely one, is the way that they use the number 9, because Joseph played a little underneath and out wide at Torino, and so he has this to his game. And you could tell even in the last couple seasons that even though he wasn't asked to do it a lot, you could tell he was a very good passer. He had good technical, sees the field very well. So this was an easy adjustment for him to make. And I think it's not anything Joseph has changed in his game. It's just a difference between the way Frank DeBoer uses his striker as compared to Tata Martino. That's all it is to me.
Well, it's a different way he uses the striker and a different way in general that the offense creates goal-scoring opportunities.
Yeah. And I think that's really where a lot of the struggles in terms of creating chances came from. And I kind of just mentioned this a second ago. It was nice to see Joseph getting some chances from crosses because that was what it was last year was, get out wide those wingers, get into the box. Eventually he's going to get on the end of it.
Yeah, just start banging in crosses.
Frank DeBoer, it's not that's not so much what you're looking for. But it's good to see. And again, I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if it's Frank DeBoer showing a tactical flexibility or the team just settling in a bit, but you did start to see those chances coming for Joseph from wide. They're not going to be constant like last year where you're bombing 20, 25 crosses into the box, but you have to have that as an element to your game. And it makes you a little more difficult to defend when you're able to create chances from wide positions as well.
It does feel kind of like Frank DeBoer saw Atlanta United in the past as sort of being a one-dimensional attack where you were playing a lot of the times out wide than cutting into Joseph. It seems like now under Frank DeBoer that the idea is, we can play from out wide, but we also need to be able to create and score from the middle. And that's what I think has become a big, at least point of, coaching from Frank DeBoer is trying to get this team to play just as much centrally as they do out wide.
So here's I guess it's I don't want to say it's a lazy talking point, but it is a talking point, and it's a little unfair to have it after one game. But based on how well Atlanta United looked, and I'll even throw in there that, it is against the New England Revolution, but we also aren't the hottest team in the world either.
They needed the result.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. How does Pitty fit with what we saw in New England right now? He didn't start because he missed training, got married, I think got back from, Argentina, and wasn't 100%.
I didn't think about that.
So they look good. They look great. Personally, I don't know that I'd want to change anything against FC Dallas just to see if it looks the same, more dangerous, whatever. Introduce Pitty at some point.
It really depends on how you fill that. If assuming you play the 4 in the back system again, it really depends how you fill that number 10 role. If you fill that role with Julian Gressel, then it's probably going to be Barco on one side, and it's hard to sit Tito after the performance we just saw. If you played Barco at the number 10 spot instead, then maybe PT sneaks in over a Gressel out wide. I don't know. I mean, to me, unless it's Tito sitting at this point with the form that Barco's in, with the fact that Julian Gressel, in my opinion, is, indispensable in a lot of ways at this point, I think that you might see PT sitting this weekend. Unless you're going to take Tito off.
Yeah, I don't think he can after last week.
It's tough.
I don't. I mean, he played a good enough game where he deserves a second shot. If that's the mindset that Frank DeBoer has.
To play devil's advocate, you did sit Barco, who has been, your quote-unquote most dangerous attacking player. Granted, you haven't been that dangerous attacking going to the New England match. So clearly, DeBoer is not hesitant to sit guys coming off maybe a good match if he sees a tactical or personal advantage. But how do you do it? PT hasn't – this is a guy who hasn't played a competitive – well, he got a few minutes over the weekend, but he hasn't played a competitive match since he got hurt with Argentina. And then, like I said, with Tito, really good form from what we've seen.
The thing is, the way that this team plays seemingly now, you'd think that Pitty would be the logical option based on how well he can pass.
It would be certainly just based almost purely off of form. As far as what they bring to the table, PT a much better fit as a starter than Tito in this system, in my opinion.
Well, I think part of that too is like when you're talking about the just the way that Tito played, for example. One thing I don't think we know a whole lot about Frank DeBoer yet because we haven't had enough time is his squad rotation, philosophy. Mm-hmm. Overall, I think, obviously we saw Tito play very well. We saw PT, like you said, not start. But is this a case where if PT is, up to fitness and everything and ready to go, do we see him just rotated in just because? That's one other thing that I don't necessarily, know the answer to yet because we haven't seen Frank DeBoer's tendencies long enough.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because it's certainly the beginning of the season. It was like, why aren't you not rotating at all? Why are you not rotating at all? And again, I get the feeling from the Columbus and New England match that Frank DeBoer, as you guys mentioned earlier, he's gotten a better idea of the personnel around him, and that's why his tactics and the way the team has played has showed a little more flexibility from what we saw over the first month of the season. And I think that's all it is. He's getting to know Tito Villalba better and what he can do, whether he inverts him on the left or learning that Ezekiel Barco can play the number 10 position as well as wide. I think a lot of what we're seeing in terms of these differences of play that you guys mentioned from the first month of the season is a lot more to do with Frank DeBoer learning about his players and kind of recognizing, okay, I can add this little wrinkle here where I can play Gressel on the right and just have him drift inside and become a center mid and attack, things like that. So I think that's why you're seeing all of the improvements you guys are discussing is simply because, and also because the players are more sharp and have gotten into the season a bit. But I think really the manager has gotten so much of a better idea of where his players excel and what makes them tick.
We'll see how that progresses over the next couple of weeks. Again, for me, and I don't know if we agree as a podcast, but for me, the next two matches now are key in figuring out if Frank DeBoer is progressing with his team or regressing. How these next two matches against Dallas, against Colorado, the results against those, to me, are going to tell me a lot. I'm not saying that they need to win both matches moving forward. I do think that should win against Colorado. FC Dallas, I think, is going to be a better test as to what this team has against a quality opponent.
Well, we said it last week, Eric. We were saying these next three matches, New England, Dallas, Colorado, we're going to look at those three as kind of in a cluster. Look at those three together, and then we'll have a much better idea of what we're looking at with the manager and going forward.
Yeah, does Frank DeBoer need to take a look in the mirror and figure things out if these next three matches?
That's why I'm fascinated, man, because it almost seems like, and again, it's hard to gauge because you played crazy New England and crazy Brad Friedel tactics, so it's hard to know for sure. But it seems like he did do that, Eric. He looked at himself in the mirror and said, okay, I like my system and what I bring, but I've got some players that I can maybe go a little more direct play, a little more fast tempo with. Certainly, I hope that was the case, and it wasn't just a consequence of New England pressing like crazy.
Now, is that crazy, or is it like too sane? Like he's playing soccer at like the most remedial level of.
Talking about Brad Friedel?
Yes, I'm saying you get ball. You try to get ball. You put ball in net.
Right.
Like that's basically what it's
so
like.
It's crazy simple. Crazy simple.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like that's all it is. It's we line up 4-4-2, and we will try to get ball from you, and then we will try to score a goal.
Kick ball.
Caveman soccer.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it is.
It really was incredible because they were pressing high in the 4-4-2, but they were pressing with their wingers. So we gave them a 4-2-4, and they were leaving Caldwell and. I'm blank on who the other center mid was right now, all alone in the middle of the field. It's the stupidest thing. But we'll see. I mean, again, we're going to have a better idea.
You saw in the first 2 minutes, he burned the hell out of him.
Yeah.
To start the match.
Sahiba was the other center.
You know what I'd pay good money for? To see Josh debate Brad Friedel on soccer.
Jeez.
I mean, how do you not become totally patronizing when you talk to a guy like that? That's
it's just funny.
But you're right. It's very dumbed down, remedial. It's like
what network was he on?
He was on ESPN, wasn't he? I remember him being on ESPN FC.
I thought it was on Fox.
Yeah,
was he Fox?
Which one?
Okay, Fox.
I think it was Fox.
Okay, gotcha.
But
it was.
Did they do Champions League then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they did when he was there. They did. Now it's on.
I don't remember him saying such outlandish things that made you think, does this guy know what he's talking about?
Well, he's a goalkeeper, so by definition,
that's a good point.
Okay.
That's a fair point.
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole on goalkeepers, but if you've known your fair share of goalkeepers, one of those fellas managing a team. It's strange. Yeah, strange. Much like goalkeepers, strange. So.
If you got any thoughts on the match that you want us to talk about,
please.
Hit us up in the YouTube stream chat. Can we just admit that clearly Remedi was the problem and him going out in the first 2 minutes or whatever it was?
What did you guys think of because I know we haven't talked about this a lot. I know that a lot of the other podcasts have kind of batted around the head injury protocol or lack thereof, how it was handled when he initially went down. There's clearly a problem here.
Soccer's been bad about this in general, and Taylor Twellman's been the ring or the flag bearer for this cause,
and his career ended injury early due to concussions.
Exactly, but it just the problem is, and we've seen this happen throughout a lot of sports, and now the NFL's done a much better job of instituting the concussion protocol where, if this happens, an independent doctor has to check you out, all that stuff. And I just don't think MLS has gotten, as far along with that in terms of a rigid set of, okay, this is what you do. This guy cannot go back into the game until this has happened, and play it as safe as possible. I just don't think MLS has gotten there because soccer, as wrong as it is, just doesn't have that sort of view as being as dangerous.
And a big part of it is if you have a head injury, just look, you can have you have to introduce a temporary substitute to give some sort of reason for teams to take their times, because it's hard to play down a man for 5 minutes while you're going through the protocol.
I can fully agree with you. There's a lot of rules that I wish soccer would change when it came to stuff like that, refereing in general.
You can't have too many rules, though, because
what's this offside? I can't stand
nothing like that. But
giving the rest too many things to do.
No, but I don't know. Because there are going to be cases where you're going to pull a guy out that doesn't actually have a concussion.
Yeah,
but again, it's much smarter to be safer than sorry.
I agree. This relates more to football, but you know what you signed up for. You know that in soccer you're going to be hitting a lot of balls, and I wonder how many concussions actually happen because of a headed ball.
Well, that's why they've taken it out of the youth game,
or a ball, right? So, or a ball to the face. I'm not saying that heading the ball is what. Obviously, that's not what gave Remedi the concussion. But as a professional athlete, you kind of know what you're, especially with soccer, where you're going to be using your head. These kind of situations happen. You kind of know what you're signing up for. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't just pick one side. Either we're going to be overly cautious, and if it's even remotely close that you might have a head injury, we're pulling you out. I'm sorry. We don't care that you hate it. We don't care that you're going to make a fuss, make as much fuss as you want, but we're more concerned about this player safety. Or you got to go the other way and just be like, you know what? We're going to let the players make decisions.
Well,
you're barking up my tree.
I think the safety should be. You have to. You should go that route.
But no, he's barking up my tree on this one, though, because I will say that personal responsibility does need to come into play. It's like I totally agree with you. You make the decision to do this. Like there's a risk-reward assessment to where, I'm going to make more money playing soccer or playing football than I would doing this. But with that comes, I might get hit in the head. And
I agree, but
no, you need to be as safe as possible.
To visit,
you have to be as safe as possible.
So I do agree. There should be if we all agree that they should move towards absolute player safety, then I would 100% agree. And I think the league should take it upon themselves to be like, look, I don't know if you've asked for it or not, but whatever. We're going to give you a temporary sub, and if that sub ends up staying in for the match, then we're obviously going to take that's one of your sub.
Yeah.
So in the case of Atlanta United, Barker would have been one of the subs that was ultimately used. Now, for Remedi to come on, no harm, no foul. You still have the all three subs, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But here, I don't know how that plays in the whole collective bargaining thing that the Players Association has to get involved with. That aspect of things makes it tricky for a league to say, we're going to do this.
I hope it would not be tricky.
I'm pretty sure.
It's going to be
from
tricky.
The player's
Everything is tricky.
From the player's perspective, it might be. Again, you don't know if
they want to play.
You don't know if Remedi. I'm not going to say lost any money, but you don't know how these per game checks.
Here's the thing.
Every single soccer player you ask, every single one, if you ask them right now, would you rather have a concussion or rather have an ACL injury? 100 times out of 100, they're going to say a concussion.
Yes.
Because an ACL injury is going to take you out for a long period of time. So the players themselves totally have incentives to stay in games and totally have incentive, because that's the thing with concussions. That's one where, at least there's no set timetable for a return, but there's also not a long-term prognosis unless you have a whole bunch.
That's what it is that you have to err on the side of safety, because a head injury, you cannot diagnose right away.
And they're all different.
If you hurt your knee, or if you hurt, it's the only injury where Eric Remedi might be able to give you every response that you need, even if you have an independent doctor there, and then wake up the next morning with concussion symptoms. Yep. So there's only one way to treat this, and you have to say you can't trust the players on something like that where you don't even know when the symptoms might appear. I mean, they might appear the next day. So again, I think there's only one option here. You have to have an independent doctor there, and then I agree, a temporary substitute, so you can take your time while that player has to sit off the field. Because this is not comparable to any other injury, at least that we know of, because you can't effectively really diagnose it right then and there, and the symptoms don't necessarily appear immediately.
You have a broken leg. You don't know if something happened.
Well, it's different as well in other sports because every other sport, I think you can sub out. Maybe baseball is the only other one that's like soccer where you can't really sub someone out.
Baseball is the only one like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes that aspect of it just a little difficult.
Absolutely.
But that's an easy
totally
fix.
Agree.
And I don't think that
it is easy.
It shouldn't. I mean, that should be like one meeting. Hey, we're going to introduce a. My thing is.
There is going to be blowback from players because players are going to be like, if this thing is too strict, what if I think I can go back in the game and you're costing me money and all this? I mean,
And I don't know. I don't think they do per game checks. Or anything.
Well, no, they don't. But I'm just saying, like in general,
I said that I was like, I don't know.
If you get a concussion, if you're a player that gets a couple of concussions, maybe a team's less likely to give you a lot of money.
I think that's the whole point of why you have to be more cautious with this injury than other ones. Is a player might actually think he is fine.
Oh, of course.
But the other avenue we got to think about it is how the advantage of having something like that happen to your team at a specific time. There's avenues that
that's a great point.
There's avenues that I'm sure we haven't thought of where
you mean like fake a head injury?
A team, I'm not gonna say fake, but a team will take advantage of the system. And how a team can take advantage of that system is, again, we haven't discussed it long enough.
Well, like if you're out of substitutions, for example, and then like somebody's like, "Hey, go down, hit your head so we can get this temporary sub in or whatever," and it's like, how do you know? That there is much as you don't want to say teams or players would act that way.
How does every team who has the lead? How does every game end?
Oh yeah, they dribble the ball into the corner.
They dribble that, and they're falling down at every touch.
Well, right.
Too much time. At what point does a team take advantage of that rule?
You do whatever you can to get an advantage.
Again, these are situations that obviously
I didn't think about that.
We haven't thought of, but that is also another aspect of this. Again, all concerns should be about player safety. We all agree about that. It's how that happens and how and it should realistically just be like one meeting between the Players Association and MLS. Be like, all right, well,
that's the thing. Cool. There is gray area. It is nuanced. It is a little bit confusing, like you guys say. But it's bizarre to me that the wheels haven't gotten moving on this at all. I mean, we had the same discussion with regards to Yamil Assad in 2017. The exact same similar thing happened where did he get hit in the head with the ball? I can't remember it, and he went down.
I forget who hit him. Someone hit the ball hit the head.
And there was more or less no protocol done.
See, I think he was.
Eric thinks that he's faking it, by the way.
I think he was.
Now, granted, that injury didn't appear
We're talking about the greatest actor in Atlanta United history, Yamil Assad.
Flashback to 2 years
ago.
I
was going to say Atlanta United's rich history.
I'm saying he's the greatest actor in Atlanta.
Faking or not,
LGP's got a pretty good
way that was handled was indicative of that you don't have proper protocol. And here we are having a similar discussion with a much more serious injury. It appears Eric Remedi said after the match he didn't remember portions of his time in.
Yeah, that's super dangerous.
And he played for like 10 minutes.
When you say that, that's not good.
And he played for like 10 minutes. So obviously you're right. In terms of comparing what actually happened to Assad and Remedi, it's apples to oranges. But the way it was handled, I think there needs to be consistency there across the board. And in both of those cases, you kind of saw a training staff like, "You're good? All right, let's get you back in there," which is the way. But it's also the way that, I mean, if you're a team doctor or trainer, that's the way you in sports are trained. Yes, if this guy might be a little injured, but if there's no serious structural damage and he can play with the pain, then he can go back in.
But you can't treat the head like
right, exactly. And it's not like that with head injuries. And that's why you need independent doctors. That's how team doctors are. I mean, their goal is to get the player back on the field as soon as possible.
Bottom line is every MLS game needs an independent doctor.
I totally agree.
Every single game. And that's where we've gone with other sports. And MLS might say that, we're not in the financial situation. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
Stop.
Yeah.
Every single game needs an independent doctor that assesses head injuries, because there's always going to be biases, or there's always going to be a team. If it's the team's doctor checking them out,
and this isn't just MLS. This is a worldwide issue.
Was it 2017? Was it the exact Yamil Assad situation where he kind of shoot off the other? There was an incident where
because Caleb Porter then tried to get the game stopped so they could pull him off and do the protocol. and they didn't.
Yeah, that was against
because that's when they were supposedly found out there was some sort of protocol. There was something they were supposed
to
do.
It was the Portland team doctors that were trying to pull.
Right.
I was like, yeah, right.
Yeah, because you don't want Portland's doctors looking at you. Just like if you're an Atlanta United player and you get hit in the head, and the team doctors are like, no, you're fine, go back out there. No, you've got to have an independent, no strings attached, no card in the game, no rooting interest or anything. You've got to have someone there that is an independent arbiter of, yes, this is a concussion, this guy's got to hit the deck, or I think he's okay.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. Just the difference of head injuries to any other injury that you have in athletics requires you to have a different qualified person who doesn't work for the team evaluating.
What's the stuff we're seeing with CTE, with some of the stuff we've seen happen from NFL players, the Junior Seau incident, for example, this is not something that you can take lightly. It has to be handled with the utmost care and the utmost urgency because, these injuries are things that, you don't see at the surface, but 20 years down the road, you got CTE and you don't know what happened.
Precisely. So that's something that needs to change. But it did funny how things happen. Is that what resulted in Ezequiel Barco's breakout moment as a professional was?
Well, yeah, because he wasn't in the game and then he was in the game.
Maybe it was the element of surprise to him to just be thrown in there like that. Maybe they just that did it for him. I know that, look, sometimes
I just think he flourishes as a 10 man. Sometimes he's great in the middle.
I'll randomly just show up to the soccer field and, from a buzz that are playing 11v11. I don't let them know. I just show up knowing what time the game's at. I didn't think I was going to be going that day, and I had the best game of my career that day. My Dolly career.
Yeah, because, your experience is the exact same as Ezequiel Barco, who's one of the most expensive players in MLS history.
If it can happen to me, it can happen to Barco. All right?
And,
that's all I'm saying.
At the local park. You playing at Blackburn Park over there?
It's UFA Milton. They have an 11-11 league.
Yeah, you don't live near Blackburn. Why did I go to Blackburn Park? That was a
Eric doesn't. Eric's not a DeKalb boy.
That's Dunwoody.
11v11, 3 refs, offside, 45-minute halves. It's
Ooh,
legit.
I like that. How about what are the sides? You playing like real goals?
Real goals, real field.
Everything. Look at that.
It's as close to the thing as possible.
That's very fast tempo game.
7v7, you guys fool around with. Way too much running.
Now, when people set up 2 cones and that's the
no, this is real.
I hate that.
All right, FC Dallas.
I'm trying to rip it.
FC Dallas coming into Mercedes-Benz Stadium on April 20th. That'll be at 4:00.
Why'd you say it like that, huh?
Yeah, April 20th. I want to.
What?
Keep it PC, I guess.
PC. It's 4:20. There, I said it.
Well, we know who the stoner is.
Yeah, Josh.
I want to keep it PC, and then I'm gonna. Goodness gracious. I guess we do.
So Atlanta United facing FC Dallas. So what do we expect to see in this? Do we want to do a quick analysis of the match?
No, I can't remember anything. My short-term.
Man, he's just not letting you have that.
No, it's fascinating, right? Because FC Dallas are like Atlanta United, one of the highest ranked teams in possession in terms of in the league. So
they're one of the best teams in the league.
I think you kind of nailed it earlier, Eric, when you said, maybe they're not going to come play their exact same style, but they're going to come and try to play some version of what they want. They're not going to react to what Atlanta United are doing so much. So again, it'll be interesting to see who wins the possession battle. Are Atlanta United comfortable without possession like they were against New England? And like you just mentioned, Sam, Dallas, a much, much better team. They're very young, but they've been pretty good so far this year.
Good in the fact that they've had 3 wins and 1 loss. Their wins coming against Colorado and
they have 2 losses.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Their win coming against Colorado. No,
they lost away to Columbus and away to Philadelphia.
Oh, I'm missing the Columbus game. My bad.
And those are 2.
I'm looking at the last 4 matches. FC Dallas beats Colorado. They beat Real Salt Lake. They lose to Philadelphia, and in the most recent match last Saturday, they beat the Portland Timbers 2-1. So I fully expect them to want to come in and want to play. I hope that benefits Atlanta United in the sense that they're not going to have to try to break them down. And they're able to use, I think Tito being in open space is fantastic for him if Frank de Boer decides to play him. I just think that opens up so much more because of how much you can utilize the wings. And without Tito's speed, you just don't open as much up in the middle. So that's my case for Tito. I guess.
Eric making a case for Tito. Man.
Wow, that's nuts.
I mean, look, if Pitty's not going to – and look, I think that if nothing else, Pitty needs to kind of – I would say it wouldn't be that bad of an idea to have him come in the 60th minute or so, see if you can't get a lead and play with the lead and maybe present Pitty with a situation with a scenario that's a little more comfortable for him that maybe is in a little more open space. I don't know. Something needs to change for Pitty to kind of bring it all together, to kind of really mesh with this team, because it just seems to be like he's, I don't know, not necessarily trying to do it himself, but it just doesn't seem to be gelling all that well.
I don't think Frank's done tinkering. Like, that's what I worry about.
No, me neither, yeah.
And, I could see something where, a big-time player is not starting. Maybe like a Gressel takes the bench for Pitty or something. I don't know if that's been the case, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that Saturday, because quite frankly, this is kind of how it's been with every lineup of other than ones that were affected by injury and you had to start guys in certain places for certain reasons. But it does seem like there's always kind of, when I look at the lineup initially, I'm like, really? So, so I could see that happening again, just because that's kind of been the pattern. But Atlanta United did break out of a pattern against New England, so maybe that'll affect them in more ways than one.
One danger man that's for Dallas is Michael Barrios, and I think it's interesting. A player that plays on the right wing, the left back position is a position where you have struggled defensively, so much so that you saw Michael Parker's playing left back one match, so much so that last match you saw Franco Escobar come off the bench to play left back instead of right back and move Breck Shafes forward. So really, really interested to see how Frank de Boer, that I think in terms of, where are you going to maybe slightly tinker with your tactics? Where are you going to have to react to Dallas? I do think it's on the right side of the pitch for them where Barrios is going to be, and he's going to be matched up with who at left back? I mean, do we see Franco Escobar at left back again, just because he's a better 1v1 defender than a Breck Shea or Mikey Ambrose going 1v1 with a speedy, tricky player like a Barrios?
Where are you, George Bello?
I found that kind of strange. Like, did you guys expect Franco Escobar? I saw him walking to the game, and I was like, look, I was distracted. I was at a going away party.
That he came on at left back.
I was like, that was a quick recovery.
I was talking about De Boer's, in terms of how quickly he got back into the lineup. I mean,
an abductor injury, it was an abductor, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to come back from.
Yeah.
And I mean, it hurts to kick the ball after an abductor.
He looked comfortable moving, but it was interesting. He came in and then Breck Shea moved forward to left mid, and it was because we were struggling to defend down that side. If you're struggling down that side, I mean, we weren't really struggling, but you could see when New England looked dangerous, so they're overloading Breck Shea's side of the pitch. If FC Dallas looked to do that same thing with a Michael Barrios, who to me is a much stronger player than the players New England had attacking down that side, you could have some real problems.
I mean, if it's Breck, if it's Franco Escobar, they're going to have a big test in front of them. Because
to me, I would just play Escobar there. I would try to avoid that 1v1 matchup with I guess Mikey Ambrose will still be injured. I would try to avoid that 1v1 with Shea going against Barrios at all costs, even if that means playing Escobar on his weak side. And we already saw against New England that De Boer is willing to play him on that side of the pitch. So it'll be interesting to watch how Atlanta handle Dallas's right side in attack.
Can we talk about last week's prediction real quick?
My prediction?
Our prediction.
So it's our money.
No, but time out. Like, okay, so we weren't wrong. we weren't. No, but for real.
I know. I was making a married couple joke. Yeah. 3-0. We both said 3-0.
Yeah. So is the blame Eric done?
Or did hashtag Josh saved Eric occur?
I think Brad Friedel saved Eric.
First of all, I predicted 3-0, and then Eric blatantly copied me. Yeah. So, because I think
you can't blame me if I did the same thing.
Yeah. So that's but also I think that you can't give him praise if he does the same thing as me. So I think, like Atlanta United, the opponent was New England. We're waiting one more week for Eric. Just like with Atlanta, we want to see performance against Dallas. I want to see Eric nail another prediction this weekend before I get off the hashtag blame Eric bandwagon.
I'm scared.
I think we're gonna see good Atlanta United again. I think going forward, you're gonna see a lot of chances created. I'm gonna go 3-1 to the good.
Just like with the players, and we talked about like with Barco and with even Frank de Boer and the team in general, you can't judge anything off one performance. You can take signs. You can say that you look at the trends. Like, well, Atlanta United's trending in the right direction. Until I see consistency, just like we said from Barco, just like we said from everything else, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, Atlanta United are this now. Do I think they win at home? I think they found something. I don't know what exactly it was, but they played much, much better against New England. They're coming home. I think they win the game. I'll say 2-1.
I'm going to say it's a 2-1 loss.
Ooh.
I think that
would be
FC Dallas.
Wow.
FC Dallas is going to come to play.
Wow.
How bad would that be for Frank? Because of the bounce back in the New England win, and then you're reverting right back to losing.
It would
again.
be bad.
Hey, well, let me
it would
explain.
be bad.
Let me,
that's what I'm saying. I think it'd be bad.
Let me explain how I think it might happen. I think the openness of the game is going to catch Atlanta United a little off guard. Not off guard, but they're going to be opened up, and FC Dallas is going to take advantage of that. Maybe a little more. Again, if you're talking about Barrios having to deal with Franco Escobar, look, that's I'll put my money on Barrios right now. And you still, assuming you still got Michael Parkhurst playing against a better team at right back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's bad at right back, but I mean, he's an older gentleman.
And Barrios can play either wing too. So if he's not working with Escobar, you could switch the wings and play him against Parkey.
I mean, Miles and LGB have been perfect in the middle. I want to think that if you're looking at the same sort of attacking mentality going forward in terms of Barco, Tito, Gressel, everyone moving forward, I think you might leave yourself a little too exposed if there's that same dedication to going forward as there seemed to be, or going direct as there seemed to be against the New England Revolution. And maybe that mindset changes, but I can only go based off what I last saw, and what I last saw was great. So I assume it's going to stay the same.
And then you assume we're going to lose.
I just think you're facing a better opponent.
Of course.
And more than anything, I hope I'm wrong. Because then you can still blame me for the win.
He's just trying to save your own ass.
Yeah,
very clear.
You can blame me for the win if I predict we lose and we win.
And then you're right if we lose.
Yeah. Right? That's how it works.
Jenna hit the nail on the head. She said, Eric, you're just begging for that hashtag to never die.
He's just clearly.
Is this not the way out? Is this not a way to reverse the curse here?
I don't know.
If I predict a loss and they win, you can blame me for predicting the loss.
But that's not a curse. That just means you're wrong already.
Well, I mean,
there's one simple way for the curse to be lifted and for the hashtag to be over. And Josh, you'll back me up on this. Eric's just got to eat poop.
Oh, right, the eat poop thing.
All right, we're
done. 1 million YouTube.
You can find me at Eric G. Quintana on Twitter. You can find the podcast at MOTS Podcast.
You can find me at JoshB914. If you ever want Eric to eat poop, he said he would if we get 1 million YouTube subscribers. So probably he's in the clear, but you can also subscribe to us on YouTube. Mouths of the South podcast on YouTube.
We'll be making money off of our YouTube page. So
yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could just afford to get your
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely subscribe on YouTube.
No one wants to listen to this. Let's go.
At Sam J. Franco on Twitter. I'm just happy I'll be back in the bins. It'll be my first time back in the bins since Atlanta United lifted the cup.
Yeah,
I've been in for a while.
We'll all be there Saturday, right? So.
If you want to donate to the cause, patreon.com/MOTS podcast. You can follow us on Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You just search for MOTS podcast on your YouTube browser.
Oh, emojis.
And we shall pop up. What did we do last time? We did hashtags. We didn't do emojis. I like that.
It was hashtag blame Eric or hashtag clone Josh. It was last time.
Doesn't seem like we're going to clone Josh this week.
Well, I'm going back to emoji one more time because I've got an hour and 57 minutes left of being 31 years old.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. So send me a birthday cake emoji. How about that?
Are you the oldest man now here?
No, it'll always be Josh.
Oh, you're the oldest one? That makes sense.
Yeah, I will never surpass Josh in age, unfortunately.
Why does it make sense?
I don't know.
That was a good burn, though. Send me a heart emoji because I love you and you love me.
Aw.
We can stick to the hashtag.
At JoshB914 at MOTS Podcast. Hashtag blame Eric.
So hashtag blame Eric, a heart, and a birthday.
And a birthday for the birthday boy.
Okay. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't want to be blamed for anything.
When do you stop getting pumped for a birthday, by the way? Because I'm not pumped for this one.
30. I wasn't too pumped about 30.
Yeah, that's
I can say that confidently.
Yeah. I will say, I think the last one though that I was really pumped for was 25 because you're oh, then you can rent a car, and then I think I've rented one car.
It's a car.
All right, I can tell you for someone that works in that industry,
it's not
that great.
No, it's really not.
It's actually a pain in the butt. But anyways, that'll do it for us. Until next time. See you later, Atlanta. Peace.
I like how.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Thanks
Like
for listening.
Andrew says, "Mouths after dark." It's like, is that like a farmer's market?